Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Monday, the 28th of June, 2021. Happy Monday. Can you believe we're almost halfway through 2021 already? Wow. I hope you're COVID free. I hope your family's COVID free. I hope you're healthy. I hope your family and your needs are being met in terms of food, shelter, and clothing, as well as health. Blessings upon those that are working in the healthcare field to try to save lives. Blessings upon those that are picking up garbage for us to keep our places clean. Blessings upon those that make deliveries for us, unsung heroes that are very little appreciated. Double blessings on those trying to deliver boys and girls, men and women, babies who are the victims of sex slave operations. Curses upon those that support such an industry. Finally, blessings upon those that are trying to help the homeless. The numbers are now increased to almost 600,000 from 500,000. Blessings to those that are trying to help, and also those themselves who are also numbering the millions around the world. For theirs is the kingdom. This morning, I want to discuss Trey Murphy III. I'm kind of excited about this kid for a number of reasons. But I want to also tie Trey Murphy III in with the Colin Sexton video I talked about yesterday. You might say, well, how does that work? Why are we tying in Colin Sexton with Trey Murphy III? It is my belief that if the Knicks are involved in a Colin Sexton trade, the trade will center around Obi Toppin. The reason I said that is because Obi Toppin, as we know, was a star at University of Dayton. And Cleveland looked really hard at him. And when I say that, I mean, they came to New York to watch him work out. They had him in Cleveland working out. And I had said at the time, if you remember the video, that it was between him and Okoro, that if the Cleveland Cavaliers chose Okoro, then Obi would be a Knick, because the teams between the Knicks and Cleveland wouldn't pick him for various reasons. But then he would become a Knick. So the moment I saw them pick Okoro, I knew that Obi was going to be a Knick, but there was a very strong possibility that Cleveland was going to take him. And why? Because Cleveland has Kevin Love on a bloated contract that they can't get off of. And by the way, if that contract is included in the deal with Colin Sexton, then I don't want Colin Sexton, because I do not want $31 million over the next 2 years for a guy that's mostly hurt, has a bad attitude. And you heard about Colin Sexton not getting along with his teammates. Well, that's Kevin Love's mouth you're hearing. Okay. And so, no, I don't want him. I don't want his contract. But aside from that, that's what they have at the 4 right now, as a starting 4, when he is playing, which is part-time for $30 million a year. So they were looking for a young 4. Now, if the Cavs pick Evan Mobley, all of this goes away in terms of Colin Sexton, because then they would have their 4, unless they were going to trade Jarrett Allen. And I just can't see them doing that. Jarrett Allen's a young big who is really a rising star. And, I think you should want to build your defense around him. So I would think if they got Evan Mobley, it's for him to play the 4. And they would have a defensive front of Okoro, Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. Okay. Which is why I think they choose Okoro in the first place last year, because he was the better defender between him and Obi. He's the better defender. And they want to, obviously, and they obtained Jarrett Allen, they want to increase their defensive presence, build the defense. And they have two short guards that in Colin Sexton and Garland, undersized guards that are not great defenders. And they don't know how to coach it, apparently. But anyway, that's their problem. So I believe if they wanted to trade Sexton, Obi would be the centerpiece in the deal. Whatever you think about that, I think they would want Obi. So that being the case, we want to look at a possible replacement, because Trey Murphy III, really, he plays small forward. He's 6'9", but he plays small forward. He's 6'8", I think, and change. They measured him in bare feet, but with his sneakers on, he's 6'9", obviously. And he got a 7-foot wingspan. And he can play defense at a high level. And yes, he can guard 1 through 4 right now. And he plays with a high IQ. He comes from a long list of players that come out of Virginia. But in recent years, I think we can all recognize DeAndre Hunter, Ty Jerome, Malcolm Brogdon, Joe Harris. There's a lot of players, Justin Anderson, that have come out of the University of Virginia. But the ones that have made, really solidified their career with either big contract or their play or both is DeAndre Hunter, Malcolm Brogdon, Joe Harris, Mike Scott, who played for Washington, who played for Philly. And we know him because, he's always hurting the Knicks when we played them. And they all have very similar character traits. Fundamentally sound, high IQ. Okay? Fundamentally sound, high IQ. All of them. That's Joe Harris. That's Malcolm Brogdon. That's DeAndre Hunter. That's Mike Scott. And that's Trey Murphy III. Trey Murphy III was at Rice. He was heavily recruited coming to high school. He chose Rice University in Texas, but for some reason he transferred. He stayed a year and then transferred. He was going to sit out a year, but he didn't. Apparently, he had a choice whether to sit out or not, and he played for UVA. His stats aren't like blowing you away when you look at his stats. I mean, he averaged 11 points a game. He played 30 minutes a game. 3 rebounds. He didn't get a lot of blocks or steals or turnovers or assists. He averaged 3.4 rebounds a game. But when you look at him on film, you can see why. He was definitely a spot-up shooter for the Cavaliers, the Virginia Cavaliers. He was a spot-up shooter. And he shot 5 threes a game and hit 43% of them. Very high, he's already NBA level. As far as the spot up shooting, he's NBA level with the 7-foot wingspan, and the range he can get his shot off, and he'll hit a high clip of them. He is not at this time proficient off the dribble. Like for example, Trey Mann is the complete opposite. Trey Mann does not hit a lot of spot up threes, but he is a really good off the dribble shooter, right? But in the position he would play for the Knicks, he wouldn't really need to be an off-the-dribble shooter right now. He would need to be what he is, a high IQ, high defensive player, high IQ player. He runs the floor very well, does a lot of backdoor cutting, like strong finisher, and hits spot up threes. That would work perfectly. He very efficient player, very efficient, and I think we haven't seen his total development yet. He's 21, but he's got a lot of upside. So at 6'9", you got a guy that you can play at the 3 or the 4. Obi Toppin plays the 4 or the 5, right? We've been discussing a lot of Knicks Nation been discussing, including myself, whether Obi could be plugged in at the 3 to get him some minutes. And the reason we have to discuss that is because we're not sure of his defensive capability of guarding a 3. But we know Obi can play the small ball 5, and we know he can play the 4. Well, Murphy can play the 2, the 3, or the 4. He's not a small ball 5, but he can play the 2, the 3, or the 4. He can guard all of those positions, and he can get his shot off against any of those guys, right? So it would take some development, and if he came to the Knicks, he would probably, I'm saying if the Knicks did trade Obi Toppin, then Trey Murphy would probably get the same type of minutes that Obi got last year, like 8 minutes, 7 minutes. And then at the end of the season, as he progressed, he'd get more. I think Tom Thibodeau might, over the course of the season, learn to trust Murphy a little more because he does play defense. Like Obi had to learn under Tom to play defense, and he did come a long way. But Murphy comes into the league being able to play a high level of defense on multiple positions and using his 7-foot wingspan to his advantage. He's very good at that. So that might get him on the floor more toward the end of the season. But I'm looking at a guy that in a year, after we draft him and he gets that development under the Knicks coaching staff, you really can depend on him. Like DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter's the same way. He come from University of Virginia, high IQ, fundamentally sound, very talented player. Good, really good spot up shooter. And, his first year was a rookie, right? But, you see this year, he was hurt, but when he did play, he's a problem. So I think Trey Murphy the third would be in that same vein. So yeah, so if a Cleveland deal was going to happen, my belief is that it would be centered around Obi Toppin. They would want Obi Toppin to be that future four. If Cleveland chooses Evan Mobley, for whatever reason, Houston lets Evan Mobley get by them, which is possible because they might want Jalen Green or Suggs, because these four guys, Cade Cunningham to me is the clear number one, but after that, the next three could be in any order. So you have, Detroit, then Houston, then Cleveland, then Toronto. So if Houston decides to go after Jalen Green or Suggs and Mobley falls to Cleveland at 3, then I think this whole deal is off, because at that point you have your front court set if you're Cleveland. Youth and defense, coming right there with Okoro, Jared Allen, and Mobley, right? So I don't think they'd be moving Sexton at that point. Okay, they're trying to dump Love right now, and nobody wants to take him because that contract is horrible. It's probably the worst contract in the NBA right now. $30 million for the next 2 years, and he doesn't play. Him and John Wall can compete for the worst contract right now, because that's a terrible contract. But if Cleveland takes anybody else in that top 4, if they end up taking, Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs or Kuminga, I think Sexton's a goner. I think he's a goner at that point, because Jalen Green or Suggs or Kuminga would be playing next to Garland. Okay. And then, Sexton is out, because Cleveland messed up in choosing 2 point guards back-to-back years. I thought when they chose Garland, they would immediately trade Sexton. I don't understand why you're going to play 2 guards like that, 2 point guards that are really identical. You need somebody bigger next to them, or somebody that's at least high level on the defensive end, which they didn't do. So it was bad management on Cleveland's part, which is why they signed an injury-prone guy like Kevin Love to $120 million after LeBron decided to leave. Anyway, so there's that. But Trey Murphy III would be a replacement for Obi. Really, that's what he'd be. I mean, why else would you get it for? Okay, that's what you do, right? You need time for Obi this year. So I'm not saying the Knicks are definitely going to trade Obi. Like I said, there's other variables involved, like who is Cleveland going to choose in the draft. Is going to be a huge determination of what the Knicks do. And then, of course, there's actually the deal that has to be made. I think the Knicks have the piece in Obi that Cleveland wants. We don't want any part of Love's contract, but then that would open up the door for them to choose a Trey Murphy. Now, at this point, on Tankathon's big board in the mock draft, they got Murphy going. Let's see, they got him going in the second round at 34 to Oklahoma City. They got us choosing Josh Christopher, which I don't like that move at all. I don't know why they do that. I'm not saying Josh Christopher is a bad player, but there was a guy last year from Arizona, very similar to Josh Christopher. What was that cat's name? Let's see, I'll tell you. He was from Arizona last year. This kid, Josh Green. Yeah, Josh Green from Arizona. He reminds me a lot. Christopher and him are very similar. I don't think the Knicks could use that. I mean, that's not what we're looking for. I mean, I just don't think so. So I'm thinking, they got Josh Christopher going to us at 32. I would love to get Trey Murphy III at 32. Almost every draft mock that I've seen has either doesn't have Murphy on it at all, or they have him going in the second round. And if at 32, I would love to get Trey Murphy. That would be a good spot for us to get him. I don't want to use our 19 or 21st pick together. I mean, because to me, to get a Duarte and a point guard, and name your point guard, whether it's, like I said, there's just too many guys. There's Trey Mann, there's Ayu Dosunmu, there's Jaden Springer, there's Jared Butler. There's just too many good players that you could get at 19, or 21 before Murph. But at 32, I would like to get this kid if we're going to get him now. Okay, so now, and again, the Knicks are in such a we're in a sweet position. This is the best position, like I said, the Knicks have been I can't remember the last time they was in this type of position in an off season. Fourth in the East, have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, have the lowest payroll in the NBA, over $50 million in cap space. We got a lot we could do. Okay, so this, what I'm saying to y'all is just scenarios. I'm not telling you what they're actually going to do. Don't think I'm saying this is definitely going to happen. I'm just using scenarios because there's so many of them that we could go by, right? They could trade the picks, get a star, keep one. Okay, they can trade, let's say 19 and 58 and keep 21 and 32. Okay, in that case, they would probably get a Murphy. Okay, I don't think they're going to keep 3 picks. I don't think they're going to do that. But there's a lot of scenarios here. Okay, let's say they traded the 19th pick and Obi Toppin to Cleveland for Colin Sexton. That could happen. Okay, that could happen. Okay, so there's all kind of scenarios out here, man. So I don't know. They could very well, and I like Obi. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on Obi. I'm just telling you what the reality of the situation is. Now, some of you were confused because I had spoke before, and I said what I said was that Julius might have a problem with Colin Sexton. But that's not saying the Knicks would not get Colin Sexton. That's not saying the Knicks are going to make a move based on how Julius Randle feels about it. I also said that Colin Sexton is a little rough around the edges. He still needs some development. But he just turned 22. He's playing on a terrible team with terrible coaching and terrible management. He's playing on what was the Knicks. But he's coming, he'd be, if he can, he'd be coming to a team with Tom Thibodeau as a coach, with Walt Perrin and scouting, with Johnny Bryant and Kenny Payne on the bench. This is a different scene. And he's already a dog. And he just turned 22. He just averaged 24 a game. He's already a dog. So that's just a possibility. That's why I'm mentioning Murphy. Now, it's possible we don't even look at Murphy because we trade the pick. But if we did, at 32, I can't think of a better player to get at 32 than Trey Murphy. I like him better than everybody else that they're talking about in the second round. Everybody else. I mean, they got Bones Highland going at 42, which some of y'all have been checking out the combine. There's no way Bones Highland is going to be on the board at 42. He'll be gone by then, right? So he's another guy, I would be looking at, but he's 6'3 and a half. He's a really good shooter. It's just like I said, this draft is chock full of talent, man. So I would, and then some of y'all like Johnny Juzang, from UCLA. He's another good player. They got most mocks got him in the second round. He's also a second rounder. But I would still get Murphy above both of those guys because he's length. He's 6'9". He got a 7-foot wingspan. He already plays defense. He plays at a high IQ. He's a smart player. He's already a spot-up shooter. He's almost tailor-made for the Knicks right now. I mean, he just is. Okay. So I would get him if we traded Obi. Okay. Because if we got Colin Sexton, y'all ought to know we would have traded Obi because I really believe Cleveland would love to get Obi Toppin. Okay. They would love to get him. So, that's what I'm thinking we're dealing with. But that's just one of many scenarios. The Knicks could end up with a whole different scene, nothing to do with Colin Sexton. We could sign, like I said, I like Sexton better than Lonzo Ball. I like him better than Lonzo Ball for the Knicks. He's not going to cost as much. He's going to be at the end of his rookie deal. He's going to be in a prove-it year, like trying to earn that money. That's what you want. So, yeah. Anyway, Trey Murphy III is a guy I would want at 32. To me, he's the best guy at 32 for the Knicks to get. I wouldn't pick him if you're keeping Obi Toppin because now you're going to be stacked at the 4. You're already stacked at the 4. You're trying to find minutes for Obi Toppin. Okay. Now, if you decided to still go get a Trey Murphy and keep Obi, then that means you're going to use Trey Murphy on the wing, which you could do. You could use him on the wing. Okay, you can. he's going to be, in my opinion, another type of player that's along the lines of DeAndre Hunter. Along the lines of DeAndre Hunter. I see him being a better version of Reggie Bullock. So you got Reggie Bullock who plays defense. He's a good, really good spot up shooter. I think Murphy will be better than Reggie. Not now, because Reggie's already in the NBA, but I'm talking about in a year, 2 years from now. Because Murph can already put the ball on the floor when he needs to. He can already go off the bounce. And he can't shoot off the bounce, but he can drive to the hole off the bounce, which Bullock cannot do right now. But Bullock is an NBA level defender right now. Murphy has to learn to do that. Murph has the ability though, and he's going to do that. But Bullock is already NBA level defender, obviously. So, but Murphy he's going to be better than Bullock eventually. Like I said, a year, 2 years down the line, you'll be laughing when you're talking about Bullock versus Murphy, but is what it is. So if they did draft him, I think if they kept Obi and drafted Murphy, he would be a wing player. He'd be a 2 or a 3, which he can play. I think he can play that. And like I said, he's just the ability to hit off the bounce away from being a real problem in the NBA. If he can hit off the bounce, if he can dribble and jump, and I'm not saying that's automatic. Like I said, we're talking about the NBA, so these things are not easy for people to do all the time, right? So he's got, other than that, the complete package. But if he could really be aggressive and shoot off the bounce, he will be a problem. He really will be a problem because he's already a really good, like I said, he's a really good spot up shooter, man. He's got that stroke is nice. He got a really nice stroke. It's amazing. Just like DeAndre Hunter and just like Joe Harris. Just like Malcolm Brogdon. They come out of that program. And like I said, some, basketball program just produce players, man. Virginia's one, Villanova's one. You got some programs. Like I said, I take anybody coming out of Leonard Hamilton, Florida State program. Now everybody's high on Scotty Barnes' is nutsack, and I hear that. Even though I don't really believe Scotty Barnes can become a legitimate NBA shooter. I just don't have that faith in him, but he's like Ben Simmons. He really is. Okay. So I think I think Scotty Barnes probably shoots a better, free throw percentage. Let me see what Scotty Barnes shoots from the free throw line. Just looking at that. He's 62%. That's what I'm saying. You're looking at Ben Simmons again with him. And I like Ben Simmons. Some of y'all tripping because of the playoffs, but whatever. But I'll take anybody coming out of Leonard Hamilton's program. Florida State. That boy know how to coach some players, right? So same with Virginia. Virginia brings forth some good players. Just like out of Florida State, as I said, when you come out of Leonard Hamilton's program, you know how to play defense on the NBA. Well, when you're coming out of Virginia, you're going to have a high IQ. That's just how it is. They only pick players that have some brains. So it looks like, that's the situation with Virginia. They all play with a high IQ, fundamentally sound. And in Trey Murphy's case, he can play some defense. So, I love this kid. I think, he would be an excellent pick at 32 for us if we decide to get him. If we kept Obi, then, you're going to play him on the wing. And he's going to be somebody you can groom with RJ on the wing. He wouldn't get a lot of time because I expect the Knicks to sign NBA level wing, on free agency. Like I said, I mentioned Norman Powell. We mentioned Kelly Oubre. These guys are already in the league. And so you're going to get a starting level wing, I think, this year, which would push Bullock to the bench. But really, Trey Murphy would make, if they did sign, let's say they signed Norman Powell, Trey Murphy would eventually make Bullock expendable because he's going to be eventually better than Bullock. Eventually. I mean, you got to groom him. And Tibbs loves Bullock. So it's going to be all kind of funny feelings going on with this one. But Murphy would be the wing of the future for us with RJ Barrett. That's somebody that in 2 years from now, you'll be seeing play in the playoffs with Julius Randle. Somebody's our starting point guard, whoever that's going to be. And, it's going to be like that. But I love this kid. He's a steal at 32. Like I said, 6'9", 7-foot wingspan. Already got the spot up 3. Already plays high level defense. He just needs to get acclimated to the NBA. That's going to take him a year. But in a year, maybe 2 seasons, he's going to be a problem. And we would be glad we had him, or whoever drafts Trey Murphy is going to be glad they had him because he really can play. He's ready to play in the NBA. He's 21 years old and not too old, not too young. He's going to be good. And it's like I said, that follows after Brogdon, same thing. I think DeAndre Hunter must have been the youngest guy that come out when he came out 2 years ago, because Malcolm Brogdon and Joe Harris were 4-year players, I believe, for Virginia. Whereas Trey Murphy just played 1 year here, but he transferred from Rice, right? So, but yeah, I don't know. I like this kid. He follows. I got good feelings about him. I don't think we'd be missed. You don't want to draft a bust. I don't think Murphy's going to be a bust. I think he's going to be a successful NBA player. So, when DeAndre Hunter came out, he was 21 going on 22, just like Murphy is. So, yeah, so it's kind of a pattern with Virginia. They usually have 4-year players or 3-year players. And, yeah, and so he's going to follow in that line. I would love to get this kid. But, like I said, we got to see what happens. There's all kind of variables. So, if they trade Obi Toppin, and I'm not advocating a trade for Obi Toppin, I'm just trying to be real in terms of what Cleveland would be looking for. Cleveland would want Obi. We'd want, probably, if we wanted Sexton, we'd have to include the 19th pick. So we give them Obi the 19th pick. It's a simple trade. Obi the 19th pick for Sexton. We don't want nothing to do with Kevin Love. So Obi the 19th pick for Sexton. That would be the deal. And they would be happy with that because, like I said, they wanted Obi last year. So, yeah, there's that. So we're going to see what happens. But Trey Murphy is a player. Whoever gets him, and if the Knicks wanted him, I hope they snatch him. If we had to trade the 19th pick, keep the 21 and keep the 32 and take this guy, get another guy. If we did pick him again, we wouldn't need Chris Duarte. If we were going to pick Trey Murphy, we would not need to pick Chris Duarte. Now we're picking a young point guard, and we're picking Trey Murphy. You don't pick Duarte and Murphy. Okay? So you're going to pick one of them. So at 21, then it becomes a point guard. Whoever it is, or a guard, put it that way, a guard, like whether it's Trey Mann, Ayu DeSumo, or whoever's available, Jaden Springer. I don't know who's going to be there, but there's going to be people there. This is a stacked draft, very stacked. So it's one of those cats that are going to be there. We pick one of them at 21 and snatch Murphy at 32. Done. And good draft. It's hard to mess up this draft. It really is. It's just, it would be hard for the Knicks or any other team to mess up this draft. You could throw a dart at the top 25 in this draft and you're going to get a player. I mean, I'm not as high on the Turkish kid Sengun as some other people are, and I'm glad other people are. I'm not as high on Josh Giddey as other people are. I'm not high on these players. That doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about, but I'm not as high on them. I'm not as high on Keon Johnson. There's some players I'm just not high on, and I'm glad they're picking, they're being projected to be chosen before we pick, because I'm not high on them anyway. I like Zaire Williams, but he is, he's 20, but he's going to need a couple of years development. Like I liken him into, he's a gazelle that's a baby gazelle, a doe. He needs development and time and feeding, to grow a little bit. But he's got talent. But Stanford doesn't normally produce a whole lot of high-level NBA players. But I like Zaire Williams. And I'm still not finished with Terrell Terry, who came out of there last year. I don't think he got the full shot yet going to Dallas Mavericks. So I'm still watching him. But I like almost everybody else. Even Sharif Cooper. I don't think he's good for the Knicks, but he's not a bad player. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Sharif Cooper stink. I'm just saying I don't like him for the Knicks because he got no floater game. He got no jump shot right now. And his defense is, he tries, but, he's undersized. He's not 6'1". He's not. So, and with no jumper, you got to have a jumper with 6'1". I think he might develop one. His floor game is, elite. And even him, I wouldn't, like I said, even if the Knicks did get Sharif Cooper, I wouldn't cry about it. But there's just so many players out here. Like I said, Cam Thomas, he's a gunner. Cam Thomas, you watch this film, man. He plays defense. He doesn't play defense. Put it that way. He has, at least Sharif Cooper tries. That's what I'm saying. Cam Thomas doesn't even try. There was a lot of film of him just not even trying on defense. Not at all. I don't want him. But you could try to work with him and put your foot in his behind and make him play some defense. But Yeah, you can't hardly go wrong in this draft. You just can't. So, yeah, there's just so many good players here. So Trey Murphy, the third, I definitely, if all of these good players at 32, give me that kid. I want him at 32. We're going to keep the 32 pick. Give me him. Okay. So anyway, shalom. Have a good day. Be safe out there.